healthcare system is broken, but it doesn't have to be. This is Revenue Cycle Optimized by Infinix Healthcare. We discuss the latest challenges in the revenue cycle space and provide actionable tips on how to overcome them at your organization.
Welcome everyone to another episode. This week of a very special treat. We're live at Dreamforce. As many of you may not realize, Dreamforce is the main conference by a company called Salesforce that really brings together a lot of innovators, a lot of trailblazers, as I call them, so to speak, to collaborate on how to improve processes and look at innovations, which right now the theme has been AI as well as automation. So with Salesforce.com, I know we use it, it's our customer relation management system. And a lot of people, when they associate Salesforce.com, that's what they think of. Processes, how it closes deals, how it runs businesses, things of that nature. But it's a little different twist where there's also a healthcare involved. And that's where I'm very excited to have with us today to explain all this to us. Sindhu Pandit, he's a physician, post-acute care space. I'm very glad to have you with us. This one's good. Kind of describe your role, what you do.
Yeah, Joe, thank you so much for inviting me today and allowing me to join office hours. Salesforce has been around for a really long time and has kind of grown in this space. They started in this space of CRM, of course. We started, our ticker symbol is CRM. So customer relationship management was the core of the company. But over the years, it's actually just beyond that. It's really much what does that mean? So you started in sales, then service, then marketing and commerce, and the continuation of that journey on how do we continue to take care of our customers' and all of those processes that's kind of lie in between. Several years ago, maybe 7 years ago, there was an intentional move into industries. So how do you go deeper into spaces and create data models and specific process that support industries in a more intentional, deliberate way. So manufacturing, retail, and of course healthcare and life sciences. And so Salesforce is not at all new in healthcare and life sciences. It's been there for the 20-some odd years that Salesforce has been around. But it's more focused on how do we serve those industries in a much more specific and disciplined manner. So Health Cloud, as you called out, Health Cloud is a specific cloud that supports healthcare being payer and provider. And really it's the data model and all of the processes that are behind it. It supports, entities within the enterprise provider space, so we think hospital systems and retail health, which is now something that we're all hearing. Also many of our payers. So across the board, so enterprise all the way down to SMB, but across payer and provider and everyone includes that's kind of out there. So it's been an evolution. It's not a finite thing. It's a dynamic platform that can power the business, and how you need it to power your business. And if you sit in healthcare, then there is a data model that's built to kind of supercharge your journey in that process. So that is a long-winded answer. Sales supports in healthcare.
And so I understand that you are the head of industry advisory and innovation
for digital
health. So just expand on your role.
Yeah, so I think about digital health, especially in these last several years, it's become an area that's a lot more talked about. You're seeing life sciences companies lean in and want to get closer to their patients, especially if you think about trials, and pharma wants to get education around the medications that they're bringing to market to patients directly and get closer to those that are prescribing. So how do you do that? So you're leveraging digital tools. In healthcare, you want to get closer to your patients. How do you help individuals get better at compliance and adherence for their process, whether it's diabetes, hypertension? Ultimately, no one wants to be known by their disease. That's not how we live. We all want to be known, right? It is not who we are. It is something we're managing. And so how do we think about digital tools to up-level the way we're helping our own patients, those that we serve, wherever we sit in the HLS ecosystem? How do we help them do that better using tools that are quite common in a lot of other industries. I'm sure, Black Fridays fast approaching.
Yes.
I'm sure everyone's starting to get those pings on things that you purchased last year or kind of that algorithm's been working in the back end trying to figure out which sweater you're going to buy to go with those pants.
Right.
So it's just it's a similar thought process. It's thinking about your health and your wellness.
Yeah, I think it's just a different way of thinking, which that most providers need to accept. And they're trying to embrace it. Healthcare in particular, that needs to catch up. And everybody's just in position to do the same thing. So with that in mind, some of the solutions that we're Salesforce do, which typically will have what a provider want to come to. Specifically, it's for those other industries, managing business, managing sales, but what would attract them?
Yeah, so I actually joined Salesforce about 4.5 years ago. So it took me a while to truly understand the CRM acronym in our space. But if you drop the C and think about relationship management, that's all we do.
That's right.
That is healthcare in a nutshell. It's about people, and it's about relationships, and it's about helping people to thrive. So if you think about how do you do that every day in whatever capacity you're in across the ecosystem, then I'll ask you the next question: how can you take that to scale? And you really need technology to do that. And so for me, Salesforce obviously is where I'm at, and I'm really bullish on this platform. I think it's really powerful. And most importantly, I think it allows you to start wherever you need to start for your business, whatever makes sense. But then allow you a place to continue to grow, right? You don't have to think about all of these point solutions and how do you then marry them all together for a cohesive experience. When you start on a platform like Salesforce, it just allows you sort of a roadmap for yourself, right? Like you are now thinking about, okay, what's my strategy on this platform? The platform is supporting you. So back to your question about why would clinicians come here, physicians and clinicians as a whole. Again, I think we're starting to think differently about technology powering how we're delivering care. For a long time, it's about we had to get all this data into our EHR system, but we weren't getting a lot out of it. I think a lot of us are starting to ask that question, like, wait, why am I putting this data down? But beyond that, so much of a person's wellness is determined by elements that don't exist in the EHR. It's about their home, it's about their nutrition, their family environment. And so those elements are really important, and they often are not in the EHR. So we need to think about other data sets. So now you're bringing in other data sets into the mix. And now, am I going to be looking at all of these different areas to then synthesize a picture of who's in front of me, in addition to capture what they're telling me? And that's really difficult to do. So if we're going to continue to just have so much data at our fingertips, we need to get better at leveraging it for information.
Right. And with everything in silos, I think beautify that.
Absolutely.
All that data, because data is king, obviously. So in touching on that, expanding on that, what challenges do you see, particularly with RCM? We're going to shift from CR, same letters, to RCM. And so what challenges from a provider perspective and how Salesforce will help that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a process that's been around forever. We've done it, correct me if I'm wrong, largely the same for a while now. And it's thinking about, okay, where is there opportunity to remove friction in the process and to truly rethink how we're doing so. It's a space that has to exist. It is a part of delivering care. So, we had chatted about the prior auth process. Is thinking about, okay, what does that look like for those that are participating in that process? We all understand that it has to happen, but what does it look like for those that are participating on your end? So if it's a peer-to-peer that needs to take place, or there's a delay because some information was missing, who is actually receiving the patient? So if we can continue to think about, okay, that's not okay. So how do we back up from that? Is there ways that we can take some of that friction outside of it? How do we become predictive about the data we're going to need? How do we ensure that when a peer-to-peer is set up, that it's set up proactively with those schedules in mind, and that you're not trying to catch someone who's doing rounds and in clinic and saying, okay, now they're ready for you. How do we think differently about that?
Make it a collaborative effort, which is what it's supposed to be.
There you go.
That's what it's supposed to be. But again, going back to silos, everyone, it's like this dysfunction of healthcare. The patient gets left not only with not being informed, but they get the statement.
That's right.
This is what you're responsible for.
That's right.
So I think it also some of the questions are something that's we never prior office to check or that platform also check insurance discoveries, things of that nature, patient estimations. But we also look at the prior auth form where it's fed by hidden out. We talk about different personas. You have the ones who have to administer the prior auth, send it off, come down, it is going to be paid. We send those notices. They don't have to go and make calls to all the insurance carriers. It's all this. Send it out to us. And we send it out to the carriers to find out it's going to be high, it's going to be accepted, and then it's funneled right back into Salesforce Health, where it's all just right there.
Yeah.
So going further, it has to get to the patient, it has to get to the other provider that you're collaborating with. I mean, I understand why it's just what's going to make it certain. So, how do you see AI and automation helping? I want to see your vision, how you think from your perspective, because you're boots on the ground, right? Still practicing.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned a really interesting process, right? So you're collecting quite a bit of information in that process. So, you can slice it by region, you can probably look at it by specialty, you can look at it by diagnosis code, you can probably look at it by patient populations with that diagnosis in the setting of X, region. Which ways can we be predictive about saying that this is probably going to be the next step in this journey? Let's ensure that you are collecting the data in advance or that we have access to it. Or if these are groups that are coming up, how do we help you in this space? Like, again, leveraging the data for information at each step of the way, and not just collecting data for data's sake, and not, getting technology on board for technology's sake. I think it's both, right? And so if you allow for feedback loops to exist along your teams and empower people to ask questions, why are we doing it the way? Then, it's small wins. I used to say, like, if it's on a spreadsheet, it doesn't need to be. and frankly, I love spreadsheets.
Yeah, I love Excel too.
Yeah.
Where does that spreadsheet live?
That's right, because if that person is no longer with our team for whatever reason, then the spreadsheet isn't now just a floating space. Like,
and it was a useful tool for that person.
That's right.
Another person makes it different. So I don't understand.
There you go. And now the data is also moved down. And that, to me, I think knowledge capture and institutional is ensuring that you hold institutional knowledge. But again, leveraging for ongoing information to power your ongoing process improvement. All of this is frankly change management, and it goes on. It isn't just start and a stop. It's constant. So allowing people that agency to say, this is the best way to be doing this, or we're starting to see a lot of calls about this, or there's this question around this, this. I'm thinking about an infectious disease that's mosquito-borne coming up in this particular area. Do they have a mosquito problem? Because they had a lot of swarms. And is that something we need to think about? Yeah. So how do we step back and think about that a little bit differently? And maybe we all, if we start to ask these questions, we'll start to make things in a more cohesive manner.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, as we wrap things up, I just wanted to ask you, what do you think the future of healthcare will look like? If we just did the perfect world, right? But if leveraging this AI automation and everything, all the good stuff, I'm very excited about the announcement with Salesforce about Agent Force. Agent Force could change that in the healthcare space. So maybe you can use that as a good example of how something like that, what Agent Force is, how it can possibly change the future.
Honestly, it's like it's this idea that we're powering the human experience with technology, which is how it should always have been, right? It's never the technology in front. And I think that's what Agent Force is. It's like allowing our agents or anyone, honestly, who are in a space where you are trying to leverage data. Are there repetitive tasks? Are there things that you have to look up? How do you start to think about that and asking to help you? You're an agent. And I think that's brilliant because in healthcare, I'm constantly looking stuff up, constantly synthesizing information. I'm constantly pulling data from different areas and putting that together to get a holistic picture of who's in front of me. So when I think about AI, when I think about especially this announcement, or all of the announcements, frankly, at Dreamforce, to me, it's moving that's what we've been hoping for in healthcare, right? It's like going from data capture and focusing on that. There was a lot of pictures we need to make sure it's captured in our X number of systems that were around. But then what? I think we're talking about the then part.
Yes.
And to me, if it's poetic, it sounds to me it's quite poetic. I think AI will finally let us get back to being human again. Focus on the human.
I was having that same thought too. It's like this, the technology and AI is helping us become more human.
It is. I think it is. I think it's allowing us to look up again and hold hands again and feel again and maybe even take empathy to scale. And maybe that's a glorious hope. I don't know. But I'd like to think that if we're able to kind of allow the intelligence engine to run on the data that we've collected and at least surface information to us, that the human can then use their critical thinking skills on top of it, and we can go back to doing what we do best, which is connecting with others.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Sindhu. I really appreciate you being here. You're amazing.
Thank you so
I
much
appreciate
for the
everyone
invitation.
who's tuning in as well. So I just invite you to join us next week. We're in for another treat then as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to get notified when our next episode is online. For more information for how we can help you increase reimbursements at your company, check out our website at infinix.com. That's INFINX.com.